Welcome back to Hot Rod Guy Garage. I'm still doing body work on this 65 Mustang. Will it ever end? Stick with me through the intro. We'll talk about it a little more. And alright guys, we are at Friday. It is the end of the week. I took yesterday off, which was 4th of July, to take care of some things I need to get done with some other projects and look at somebody else's project that may be coming to the shop soon. But we'll talk about that later. So, it's about middle of the day so far, and I've been working on the car. Run into some more of those Taiwanese problems with taillight panel. And I knew this was going to happen. I knew it was already there. And I'll flip it around and I'll show it to you. So no matter how good you measure and line things up here, especially our alignment tabs for our taillight panel, well, I knew there was some fitment issues with the fuel tank filler neck and the panel back here. Alright, so fuel tank fit fine, sit flat and good, but I noticed when I've been body working this trunk that the fuel filler hole was kind of offset a little bit. In fact, it was offset about a ½ inch. It was stamped about a ½ inch off. So what I've done this morning, I come in here and I cut this out. I didn't make a video of me cutting it out. I've moved it over a ½ inch, made a patch for that ½ inch band that was on this side, moved it over. And the way I done that, okay, is I marked the center of our trunk latch hole on the panel right here. Well, the center of your fuel neck is the center of this screw hole right here. And that ensures that when you screw your gas cap on that it says Ford Mustang and it's all centered up and everything looks right. So, real simple little deal. Similar to doing some of our floor patches and stuff. Except it took a little more time because I was trying to minimize any kind of warpage. So, very, very small amounts of filler in here. It's literally just the size of our cutout place. And I went in here and put our trunk latch brace back in. I reused the one that was in the car previously. There was some of this boogery welded stuff I couldn't get all the way cleaned off. But it is plug welded up here. I went ahead and body worked that back down flat. Plug welded on the sides and along the bottom. And then I added a couple little rounded beads here and there on both sides to get our trunk lid where it latches and it sits flush and good and doesn't disturb any of our gaps. And our filler neck is now centered. So now that is took care of, I can move forward from here. So this is one of them things, guys, when you run across it, you got to address it, put it in the right spot if yours isn't. I probably could have offset the taillight panel to compensate, but I wanted all my alignment grooves lined up. So got that taken care of. I need to still do the driver's side rocker panel. I've been dreading doing it because you have to lay on the floor to mess with it. And it's miserable and I'm sore from doing all this body work. So let's see if we can get this rocker panel busted out today. And at least get the paint off that passenger side fender because this is the one that's going to need the most amount of body work. And can't do nothing in the shop without Daisy supervising. It's been raining. I guess she got hot, so she came out here and laid in the rain. So she's been watching me work. I've never seen a cat just lay out in the rain because she's hot. But it must be a lot cooler out there than it is in here because it's about 95 degrees in the shop. It's been raining, so it's mega humid and mega miserable. So let's get started on that rocker. We've got a rocker panel skim down there. We'll let that dry just a few minutes here and I'm going to knock off knock it off a little bit, and I'll go back and finish working it. And as you can see in the background, Daisy's still chilled out back here. She don't care. She don't care if it's sprinkling rain. Not dog. So let me get to knocking this down. It should be taken up by now. And alright, I got our rocker worked down. You can just see pretty much where our clips were. And a few of you may wonder why I've done this seam like this. This is how you get a perfectly straight, flat seam between your rocker and your quarter panel. Basically, I just skimmed over the top of it, and I brought our line back straight. So, ready to spray some primer on this right here because it is still kind of wet and nasty outside. And Daisy has now come up here and laid down. So, let me get that sprayed and then I'll be back. Got a rocker panel kind of sprayed there, but you can see we got a nice good straight line. That to me is super important because when I go to car shows, that's probably one of the things that catches my eye. Is you can tell if it's had a quarter put in or not because of that seam right there. So as long as you work that seam so it's pronounced correctly, it generally ends up looking pretty good. So let's move on to the front end of this thing. And to do anything in the front end, I gotta move all my stuff off my super useful table. So let me get to that. So before I get too deep in this fender, and when I say too deep, I mean to the point of pulling it off, there's a couple things that have to be addressed while it's still on the car. So I'll flip it around and I'm going to show those to you. We're going to address those in this video, and then we'll move on from there. So the big elephant here is this ginormous crease that runs up this fender. So what I need to do, I need to get all this red paint off the top of this fender up here to the point where this dent starts, or just right past it, which will be somewhere right in here. I get the paint off that section right there. We'll get this pulled out. Another thing that needs to be addressed is this gap right here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in here with a coat hanger, and I'm going to bend kind of where I want my gap to be. Now, I've still got a little roughness here on this edge, and I left that there on purpose. That is actually just a little filler roughness, because I'm going to use that to help me fix this gap right here. But our gap's tight right here, because this fender is actually pushed down. It actually rubs the edge of this door right here. So I'm hoping once we get this crease pulled out, that'll pull that out. And once that crease and that edge is addressed right there, we can pull this fender off, and I will more than likely just go ahead and chemically strip the rest of this, because it will be easier at that point. And anytime that you're going to weld near glass, guys, like this windshield, you want to cover it with something heavy. Preferably something non-flammable, but cardboard does work. So I've got that covered up. I'm going to work on this edge, and hopefully we can get this closed up a little bit like I did on the door over there. And alright, if you didn't notice what I done, I took it from our widest area, took a coat hanger out like that, spotted it down here at the bottom. Took a small piece, spotted it like that, and I filled up the gap with weld. And what that'll allow me to do is grind this down until it's flush with this door. It'll also allow me to straighten this up as I need. And once I get this fender off, I'll be able to run a bead on the bottom of it down there, and it'll be just as good as having an original fender edge. But that was step one. And as you noticed, I did not worry about the heat and warping the metal because this fender is junk right here anyway because of this mess. I will fix this once we get it off the car. And the sharp eye also noticed that my cardboard caught on fire. It happens. Just don't stick it anywhere where you can't monitor it. So next thing is get the paint off on this big old gash on this fender, and then we start pulling that dent out. Now that the paint's off of it, you can kind of see how severe that dent actually is. Now, I may go in here and hammer and dolly this and see how it goes. But it also had another big old blob of Bondo in it. You probably can't see it in the little fast forward clip, but it had a slab of Bondo in it from here to here too. So, need to try to get that worked out as much as we can. The good thing is we can access this fender all the way back to about right here at the cowl point. We'll just have to see how we have to work it out. And alright guys, what I'm doing is I'm doing an off the dolly hammering method. I'm following dent with the hammer and the dolly, with the dolly leading and the hammer trailing. And what that does, it helps me work this out where I can see. So I got back here to the point where there's an inner structure right here. So I may go ahead and break out the stud puller for this section right here, because I really wanted to make sure that this area would open up right here and not rub this door in this situation. So I'm going to continue working this for a few more minutes and we'll see where we get. And just like I anticipated, getting this pinch out of here opened up plenty of clearance where you won't knock paint off the door. So now I gotta cut all these little studs off, but got most of that pulled out. There's only a little small section right here, and I will go ahead and dolly that out once I get the fender off. But doing it this way allowed me to make sure that when I take this fender off, it's going to go back on in relatively the same place, and I'm not going to have to do anything additional there other than body work this fender. And all that's going on, she's still up there asleep. So another area right here that don't fit good, you see our headlight extension fender. We got a big old lip right here, and where our body line comes down off our fender, we got a lump here into the headlight bezel. So this stuff you run into. But at this point, I'm ready to start taking this fender off. which will be pretty easy without taking the bumper off of it because it don't have the bumper braces on the sides of the fenders where it bolts to the bumper. So at least save me some disassembly time at this point. But let's see what's under the headlight bezel because I don't know either. Yeah, they didn't even bother painting there or get rid of the gold paint on the back side of this. Can't say I'm surprised. So next thing is I'm gonna get that other headlight bezel off so I can take this whole grill assembly out, and that'll make it easy to get the fender off. Well, got a looks like a deck screw run in there. So hopefully this not done the right fasteners here. They got stuff just all rigged up in here. So I got a Phillips here and a drywall screw there. Just some random hardware store bolts there. So let me get some more tools. Yeah, that's one of those screws you use on one of those metal roofs. It's got a rubber washer on it too. Get that thing rammed in there into the core support. So, good job. Well, after a few more hidden dust screws and randomness, finally got the grill assembly out. This thing is obviously all broken up and rigged up, and we got the gutter guard grill hiding holes behind the factory grill. You know, this side's not that bad, except they had that sheet metal roofing screw run through there. But that's pretty bad fitment there. So I shouldn't have been surprised that that's all rigged up considering what we ran into on the rest of the car. Yeah. So we're not even going to talk about all the red paint mess under the hood, but hopefully there's not a bunch of rigging with the fender bolts and I can get this fender off pretty easy. Eventually I'm going to have to take the bumper and this filler pan off and the lower valance and all this stuff off because it's going to be the only way to do it right. So I'll pop back in here a minute with a tip on how to align your fenders if they line up good before you remove them. That was the only decent thing about this car was that it had a good hood to fender gap and a good cowl to fender gap right there. So what I'm going to do, I'll show you a trick here in just a moment, how to make sure you get that aligned back up perfectly. And alright guys, the trick I'm going to show you, what I'm going to do, I'm going to drill a couple of small holes in about 3 places on this fender lip. And what that's going to allow me to do is take 3 straight picks. When I go to install this fender back, I can drop it down in that hole in them 3 spots and tighten the bolts down, and our gap should be great. So anytime you're going to drill these holes, you want to kind of do it as inconspicuously as you can. So what I like to do, I'll go in behind the bolt. Something like that right there. That way this pick will drop in that hole and you'll be able to line your fender up. And I will do this in several different spots up through, assuming our drill chuck will actually stay tightened. what that allows, you probably can't see it, but it'll allow you to push that pick down in there, and that pick will be tied in that hole, and that fender will be dead on where it goes. So I drilled one up at the front, one in the middle, and one back here towards the rear. So once I got all them holes drilled, it'll be super easy to line that fender back up. And I'll be doing the same thing when I pull that trunk lid back off. I will drill me 2 holes in each hinge, and I'll be able to stick a pick in there, or 2 picks in there, or 2 Allen wrenches, or whatever else might fit tight in that hole. And I'll be able to put that trunk back on in the same position I took it off, without disturbing any of the gaps that I worked so hard to get. And at this point, I'm working on taking the fender bolts out of it. I'm starting to see stuff I don't like, and I'm going to show it to y'all here in a minute. But one of the big things I'm starting to notice is the idiot that put this car together has started ramming metric bolts in it. So more than likely, going to put all new nut certs in it, or nut clips as you may want to call them. But yeah, and just wait until I show you what I think I just found. I got the fender off. I don't think y'all were ready for this, because I sure wasn't. So up here in the front, let's just start with the easy stuff here first. The fender was welded to the core support up here at the front. As you can see, our headlight bucket has had the teetotal snot beat out of it inside that fender. There is the bottom of that metal patch. Oh look, another metal screw, or metric screw, cross-threaded in there holding that bracket on. And it's about 75 foot long, sticks through the bottom. I just went ahead and ripped that rubber off right there, because it's got 10,000 self-tapping screws holding the rubber on this plate, a piece of masking tape. See that? That's exactly what you think it is. And it's all the way up. These places, some of this is seam sealer. This hole was like that. That hole was like that. Nothing in it. That kind of ugly there is where I put the pan in it and tried to make it look the best I could under here. The fender mount rail is absolutely murdered, to the point where they start stacking shims trying to make things better, because it's all bent up right here. Perhaps the scariest thing that I've seen so far is, if you will notice that this fender apron's been replaced where your battery sits. Notice there's bolts. Now, you do have a brace down there and for the battery tray, but notice bolt, bolt, bolt. And once again, it's normal to have bolts up here. Notice there's no welds on the apron. Well, there's no welds holding the core support on, but that boogery stuff where they had the fender welded to the tray up here and the core support and the fender. But yeah, the core support is not attached. You wonder how I stay calm. Let me tell you, I've been disappointed a lot in my life, but some stuff just keeps on giving, and this car is absolutely no exception. To the point I'm going to have to take this whole thing apart. I mean, just to even make it right or safe, because they've apparently laid their hacky little fingers in every single inch of this car. And I feel so bad for him for getting screwed on this thing. And I'll tell you, if I knew 100% who built this car, I'd go to their house myself, take their tools away from them, because they do not need to be working on cars. So, man, I mean, is this even reality anymore? I mean, let's just have a dose of reality, guys. There's no reason. Absolutely no reason. And one thing I didn't notice in the video, that whole rail, not just the back of it's bent down, the whole thing's all jacked up when you stand back and look from behind. So, me drilling them lineup holes for a Fender, not going to apply at this point. So, all I'm doing is flip the camera around. Let's dig into some of this globby stuff here. Let's see what we find. So, I'm already going to tell y'all, this is silicone. Like house silicone. No place in a car. All that's factory tar undercoating or seam sealer right there. So that's good. Don't know why there was blob that stuff there. More like house silicone down here in the bottom. Even more like house silicone. Fortunately, all that was just tar undercoating or tar seam sealer that the factory used. You see the gold paint under it. So that made me feel a lot better than what I did. This is where I welded the pan up in there and worked on toe board and where they had it before up here and where it's at now in the correct position. So I had a pixie up in the cowl. It's not absolutely horrible up in there, but it would still need to be addressed at some point. The bad thing is we got more structural issues. So that's going to have to be addressed. So I was hoping I didn't have to take the absolute whole car apart at this point. But I'm going to have to. And I hate it. I hate it for him. I hate it for me. I hate it for y'all at home watching this stuff to actually have to see some of the crimes against humanity that were put into this car as it was built. So, I don't know. The only good thing is at least the apron's not welded in, so it's not got no boogery mess to fix. But I've got a lot of bent up stuff up here that I've got to straighten out. A lot of fasteners I've got to figure out. And a lot of mess. I mean, this thing's got absolute globs of paint under the hood of it. And I'll flip around and show you that. Like, we all knew that it had buttloads of paint on the car. But under the hood here, I don't know if you can see that, but you can see the texture of it. This isn't just all dirt. This is paint. And this stuff is absolutely globbed on here. Which this car should be black under the hood anyway, but to ever address this, it's going to have to be stripped. And it looks like now's the time to do it. Wish this wasn't in there. It would make life a lot easier. So, this core support, yeah, it's not great either. It probably actually needs a new one in it. I don't know if it's welded on this side, but this side don't look to be disturbed. Those appear to be factory spot welds. So maybe I can save it. We'll just have to see what we get into here. All this being bent up makes you wonder if this car may have been hit on this corner before. We were definitely missing that bumper bracket that bolts in this bumper hole right here. You can see it's missing a bumper bolt. And looks like we got some wiring harness mess too. But the big thing is we got to get this apron straightened out. And this thing is absolutely murdered up through there. So, but it is absolutely not welded in anywhere. And it never fails. Just as you feel like you've gotten ahead, here comes life. Suck you right in the, the old 1-2. So, I got some stuff to think about how I'm going to approach fixing it. The bad thing is, yeah, well, you know what the bad thing is. The bad thing is this. So, at this point, I need to get the other fender off of it. And get this bumper off of it and the valance panel and all that stuff. And I need to just go ahead and get all the hackery off this car at this point. So the good thing is the rear half of the body work is roughed in, other than the roof. Like I said, I'm waiting on him to make a decision if he wants to put a vinyl top back on it. And I know there was some concerns in the last video, put the vinyl top back on it, but it's just going to make it rot out again. Epoxy. So I wouldn't be leaving it like that. I would probably high build it, block it, and probably epoxy seal the roof again to assure that nothing would ever get through the materials to rot the roof out again. My green Torino, that's the way it is. It didn't come factory with vinyl top. I added it because I liked the way it looked. So there's ways around it. But the surprises don't end yet. And I'm sure they're going to continue. And another thing, I mentioned this fake hood scoop on this car. And still flip the camera, I'm just going to show you. You can see it's bolted through right there. There's no hole. Why have a hood scoop if it don't, do something? So I guess I decided to go ahead and tear this other fender. Strip bolt. These two look okay. That one looks horrible. And then we got one of them GM metric self-tapping bolts that they use in GM cars. Should have been a rearmost hole back here. So yeah, the idiocy has not stopped. Missing this bumper bracket right here. Keep the corner of that bumper from doing that. As you can see, we have an atrocious gap down through there. So let me get this wheel off. I'll get that inner fender piece out in there so I can get to the fender bolts. Let's rip this fender off and see what's under it. Because at this point, I'm absolutely not going to be able to sleep tonight because I don't know. I need to know what I'm dealing with. It's already after 5 o'clock on Friday and I'm still here at the shop and I'm still working on this car. So if anybody's been curious, the last 2 videos and this video combined is about 40 hours of actual labor time. And I will bust all the labor stuff down when this car gets done. We will go over a cost, how much labor I actually have in it, how much of materials he's got in it. Because I'm keeping a log of everything. It just keeps getting deeper. So let me get this off and we'll see where we get. Even Daisy had to come over here because she is so disappointed in what we just seen that she couldn't even stand it. Yep. Driver's side holds even more horrible secrets than the passenger side did. At least the apron's attached over here. But the fender was rammed in there with metric bolts on the bottom. And I'm going to flip it around and show you what I put my head up against the fender about. Because I should have been able to run a long extension and a half-inch socket up there and buzz the bracket off the A-pillar, which means it would have been very easy to put back on. But they never took the easy route with this car. So instead, they put a stud in there and a nut that completely covered the other bolt, and then this stud was touching the A-pillar in there. It just turned into a whole bunch of fun. And their first clue that the fender end weren't in the right place should have been that they were drilling into the brace back here. But that's not the big issue over here. This fender, obviously all these tabs are all bent up and it's all ugly up around through there. But 90% of that stuff's not seen. What I did see was that the bumper braces are well done to the subframe right here. And it's got some slobby stuff in here on the frame rail right here. And then these bumper brackets aren't tight because, you know, yeah. But between that, the skewer and crap wiring, there's really no surprising things over here. Little rust here, you know, that's not such a big deal. There's a hole inside the car right there. You know, nothing in this plug. I guess that's how they were trying to get their stud in there, which is fine. But you can usually run your long extension up through here and hit that bolt right there. But that stud was in there like this. So you may be wondering why I'm not panned up yet. Well, I told you it needed the cowl before, and I absolutely was not wrong. At this point, this is structural right here, because this is the upper cowl. Their fix for it was to slab it full of kitty hair. You know, just slab it full of kitty hair right here. And, you know, that fixes everything. Just slab kitty hair in it. So, I'm going to dig this out before I leave, so we can see exactly what's under here. Looking under the dash, it didn't look this bad under there. It actually only had two little bitty tiny small holes that I could see, but enough for me to say it needed the cowl. But that right there is where all your structure ties together, and all this is load bearing, and it's rotten. Well, I got the kitty hair out. Yep, they totally just slabbed that on top of it. This come out of the inside in there. You know, lots and lots and lots of hacking garbage. I mean, this hack job couldn't even buy some fender shims, lock washer. I mean, all you had to do was dolly this up a little bit, you stupid moron. But cover this up, that's horrible. I mean, I can deal with this, you know, I can deal with it missing plugs. I can deal with the factory seam sealer that's kind of globby everywhere. But the cowl, I mean, you can look up in there, guys. You can see light shining through. I know it's not really focusing, but you can see light shining through in places up through there, through the inside of the car. Wonder why it leaked water inside. It didn't look that bad, but it is that bad. So, much as I didn't want to take that windshield out, it's going to have to come out because this is 100% got to be fixed. I mean, there's no way that this is not going to be fixed. I mean, come on. Come on. I mean, you had the fenders off of it, you couldn't even paint that. At least the VIN's still there. Welded on bumper brace, hacked in floor pans, hacked in quarter panels, hacked up doors, trunk lid. Yeah, I'm fussing a little more than I probably should, but come on. There's a point. There's a point where you just don't do no better. There's a point. I mean, good Lord. And I'm not even digging into the hood. Not took the bumper and the front balance off of it. But, yeah. You know, I entertained not messing with the cowl because it didn't have all that big of a hole as I could see from the bottom. But I can't ignore that. And I hate it for him. I really do. Because, like I said from the beginning, it's not worth fixing. It wasn't worth fixing. It still isn't worth fixing. And we're almost done fixing it. So, the only choice you got is make lemonade out of the lemons. And she's a big old lemon. It's going to be a hard one to squeeze. That being said, guys, it's like 7 o'clock on Friday at this point. I got the front end off this thing. I've seen more than enough to give most people nightmares. So, please comment down below so YouTube picks this up on their algorithm. Like it, share it with your friends. If you're not subscribed and watching this, hit that subscribe button. Because it helps me help him out, and he needs all the help he can get with this thing. I mean, it really needs an exorcism. You know, if you believe in that kind of stuff. Because I really hope the guy that built this car is watching this. Because shame on you, buddy. Shame on you. So, until next video, guys, thanks for watching. Wish me luck. I'll see you at the next video.